is long too. I get it. So I want to talk about you personally before we get anywhere, because that's where we make a connection. The one person who's already watching, I want you to share this right now. Share it so we can get this out live. Maybe start a watch party with your friends. That'd be awesome. So, Christopher, you're the owner, creator, writer, editor, bunch of things, I'm assuming, with Breaking Rules Publishing. But none of that matters compared to this question. I start off silly all the time to find out who you really are. If you could only eat one sandwich for the rest of your life, what sandwich would that be?
Ham with mayonnaise, mustard, and lettuce. That was easy. Thick ham. Thick ham with mayonnaise, mustard, and lettuce.
Like, are we talking processed ham, or are we talking like real ham from like a deli type thing?
Yes, like real ham. Real ham from the deli.
That makes sense. Now, I start off with a silly question to make people comfortable. That's the whole point of it. So cool. I want you to talk about your story and specifically your journey into getting published the first time, and then why you started Breaking Rules. Okay,
so writing started, and I tell this story all the time. It's my daughter's fault. She was 15 or 16 at the time, and I had been reading a bunch of stories, and I was reading this one story. I can't remember what it was now, but it doesn't matter. And she said, "How is it?" And I said, "I had a better story than this." And she said, "Well, why don't you?" And because I'm a father of 4 children, one of them being her, and she was 15 or 16, you obviously say, "Fine, I will. I'll go ahead and do that." And so I did. I sat down, and it took me like 3 months to write the book. And then I showed her, and she's like, "Yeah, well, what are you going to do with that? It's on the computer. That's so what? I could do that every day." And she's like, "God dang." So then I put it out trying to get it published, and of course that takes forever. I found an agent who would take it on, and she decided that she needed to morph my story into something that fit her genre or her ideas. And some of the ideas were okay, and some of the ideas were like, "I don't think so." And then she found a publisher that kind of did the same thing and changed it even more. And by the time the story was done, it wasn't my story anymore. So I kind of said bye to all of you, and I went and found somebody else. The problem with that was when I did find them, they turned around and said, "Yes, we'll take your story. We'll publish it." And they did. And they sent me the book, and they said, "There you go. You're on your own. Do what you want with it." And I'm like, at the time, I was a factory worker. You know, what is a factory worker supposed to do with a book in his hand? And I found this too, that most writers, when they're doing this, they think that the publisher is going to do all this stuff for them, and they're going to become this rich person, and I've written a book, I'm making $1 million. That's just not the case. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. So unless your name is King or Sparks, it doesn't happen. So after that, I got the book in my hand, and I showed her, and then it was something tangible that she could say, "Yes, you finally did it. That's really great. Now what are you going to do with it?" And I should mention now that my daughter's going to be 34, and she's still that way. She's still pushy. But so then it was, fine, I've got to make some money off of this thing. I've got to get people to see it. And then it wasn't even a matter of making any money. It was just a matter of having someone look at it and read it so that they could say, "Yes, I love your story." And then it became, well, if you did this and you did this, then you're going to make some money off of it. One of the interesting things I did when I was in New York City was I bought 100 books, and I put them on the subway cars and just dropped them on the subway cars so people could pick them up. And it was amazing. It escalated. I sold like 17,000 books that way. It was just amazing. So in the process of all that, I went to write the next one. I wrote the next one. And then people started saying, "Well, how are you doing this? How are you getting it published? And what are you doing? What's the whole thing?" So they're asking me all these questions. And it got to the point where, well, if I'm going to answer all these questions and I'm going to tell you how to do it and give you all my secrets, then I ought to get benefits from it too. So that's where the whole publishing part came in. And it kind of just surrounded itself with, I don't want to just throw the book into somebody's hand and say, "You're on your own." Yeah. I want to help them. So now we have a marketing program that Breaking Rules is a part of, and we're trying to create this whole writers community so that all the writers are helping promote the other ones, not just themselves. And It's working out. It's working out. We have about 170 authors under our belt right now in 23, I think, different countries. So I'm good with that.
That's fantastic.
3 different magazines that come out every month, and there's an anthology that comes out every month as well. So things happen. Things happen very fast. So it's good.
That makes sense. You know, my initial interview with one of your authors, Ed Green,
Yes.
he talked about the community that you are building. And I've had, I think, 10 of your authors reach out to me, and 2 of them are watching right now. Yeah, and they share it amongst themselves.
Okay, I see that. They what?
They're sharing it amongst themselves, which is what authors should do, right? It's just like the arts community should be supporting each other and helping if you believe in their actual work, right? So
Yes.
I like what Breaking Rules is doing specifically. You're breaking down the barriers to not only authors but to media as well, right? The really well-known authors have a media machine put behind them, and they basically get a rocket strapped to them. And many of those books are nowhere close to the original book that the author wrote. Nowhere close. And if you look back in history, we look at the really big authors in the last 100 years or before the last 100 years. And those people were basically self-published. Yeah, they got a publisher, but it wasn't the same as the publishing world today, which had a lot of backing behind it. You look at Shakespeare specifically. Shakespeare was a hack in his day until he got famous. That sounds crazy, but he was.
The only reason why he got famous is because Christopher Marlowe died. You know?
Yeah. So with what you're doing, I feel it carries the spirit of the author more than a traditional publisher would, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And some people would call it's been called vanity publishing in the past, where you basically get that type of thing. But it's not vanity publishing. It's getting the story out about who you actually are. Does that make sense?
It does.
And the story that's in you.
And just to be clear about that for a second, what a vanity publisher actually is a publishing house that charges the author to publish their work, and we don't do that. I mean, anyone can come to us, and you're not paying a cost at all. We're going to help you with your interior, and we're going to help you with your editing, and we're going to help you with your cover, and we're going to put your book out. And one of the cool parts about what I think is necessary, and someone said that one of the authors said this to me just the other day. They really enjoyed it when I said to them, "We're going to make this book exactly how you want it to be, and we're not going to be happy until it's done." So that's the premise with everything. We work with the authors back and forth to say, what are you looking for? What do you want to have this? And how is this book supposed to be set up? I mean, right down to which side you want the chapter to be on in the book. I want it to be how you want it to be, not how I want it to be.
That makes sense.
And a really good thing is you were talking about genocide. Not all these books that I publish, not that I don't like them, they're not my style of something that I would actually pick up and read. Ed Green is another one. Although he has one really good book. It's called Father May I, that is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they're not all necessarily something that I personally would like, but they're really still good books, and they're written really well. So why wouldn't we want to put them out? Someone's going to like them. Just because I don't doesn't mean anything.
That's right. Ed actually told me about one of his sci-fi books that you don't like sci-fi, right? And he said that he told me the story that you actually think it's not that horrible. so, but it's okay. Here's the thing. When we're doing these interviews, the whole goal of this interview is to be personal, right? It's to show the people behind the author, and stuff, right? Because if we're not personal, let's take the Twilight series. The author of the Twilight series. Do you know anything personal about her at all? No, but I know that Daniel, the guy that I just had on, has 10 cats. Did you know that about your author?
I actually did know that he had 10 cats. When you did Ed's interview, did you see that big huge clown that he has in the back behind him?
He had posters. I didn't see any.
He has a crazy fetish with this clown. It's just like, oh man. But hey, everybody's got their thing. So
I think he's probably watching. Ed, if you drop a comment, you can rebut. So obviously the you write yourself as well. What are some of the books you've written?
I've written 7 books, and I've written 4 short stories. And the book that I'm writing now actually is from a trip that we took to Italy last year. We were there for 2 months, and we traveled all around, and I kept seeing all these beautiful doors. So I started snapping them, and then someone said something about you should put those doors in a book, kind of like you've seen those books before, the little coffee table books. And I kind of took it one step further and said, well, that's been done. Why don't I do something else? And I decided to take 13 doors and write a story about each one of them. And that's going to go inside of the book. So it's going to be called, actually, it's Tredici Porta, which is 13 doors in Italian. So each one of them will have a story about what's either in the front or behind the door. And then there's one, it's this copper church door that I found. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? So I decided to make the story with a conversation that happens in the threshold of the door. So it's going to be kind of cool. I'm excited about it.
That sounds awesome.
And I should just tell you, and that's kind of like the things that I like to publish too. I mean, people have really weird and off the wall ideas that no other publisher is going to say, yeah, that's cool, I want to do this. And I'm thinking, well, why not? Why shouldn't they get a chance to have their book published just as well? There are people who want to read them. Why not?
I think the publishing industry for years was taken over by academics, and it's a weird thing. It's you're not good enough just because of a social standing or whatever else. You're not educated enough. Blah blah blah. And frankly, that's just bullshit. Sorry for swearing. I apologize.
I agree. And the thing is, if you don't have a name, it's so hard to get in. If you don't have a name, those big 5 they're not going to publish you. Or unless you have a huge following on Amazon, or you've already sold a whole bunch of books, they're not going to do anything for you. And I've had so many people who come to me and say, well, I want a $5,000 advance. Really? Come on, that just doesn't happen anymore.
Good. Go sell 5,000. Go sell 5,000 books.
And I'm like, you just go right ahead. And then when they don't give you that $5,000, we come back and we'll talk some more, because you're nobody. This is your first book. You don't have any followers. You don't have. They're not going to invest $5,000 in you when you're bringing nothing to the table. And that's kind of what I don't want to say this about all writers, but a lot of writers have that mentality where we were talking about earlier how they're going to make $1 million off of this book. If you don't have the wherewithal, or you don't have the drive, or you don't have the connections, or whatever it's going to take to push your book by yourself to help them move it forward, you're not going to make that money. It's just not going to happen. You have to be willing to get up and spend $1 just to make $1.
Yeah, I'm an entertainer. That's what I do. That's why I created this show during this COVID stuff. I do hypnosis across the country, and when I'm marketing, I market to 1,000 different groups for selling my show. It's the same with a book. If you're not marketing to 1,000 people to per month even, right? And selling, and maybe selling 30, 40, 50, whatever it is to those 1,000 people, you're not going to get anywhere. It's about getting out there and doing the hustle of it, right? And we hear these stories where, yeah, you sold 17,000 books, but how much of that was luck, and how much of that could have been a total failure? But you put yourself out there, right?
You're right. You're absolutely right. What I was just thinking about something, and I've lost it, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Ed says he likes his creepy clowns.
So I'll tell you, the first book that I wrote, I took it to my therapist. I was going through a divorce at the time, and I took it. This is like the best compliment I've ever had. Took it to my therapist so that she could read it, and she said to me, I had to put it down 7 times because it was disturbing to me in such a way that I couldn't read it anymore. So she went back 7 times before she was finished reading the book, and I'm like, that is the best thing that anyone's ever said to me. That is just so amazing. That cool, if you can sit there and you can read the whole book in one night, that's fantastic. But if my book or the things that I wrote in there affected you so much that you had to put it down and relieve the stress that you were building up inside of you before you could actually go back, oh, fuck, that's just fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you're writing, I've talked to a few authors in the past little while, first timers and people that have like 20 books out. When I'm talking to them, do your characters it's the wrong word. Channel's the wrong word. But do your characters become real in your mind where they almost speak back to you and say that, no, this is wrong. I'm not going to do this in this book. This doesn't make any sense to me. And it's almost like a voice that comes out of nowhere, which sounds weird.
My first 3 books that I did, there's a character who floats in them all throughout 3 books. And in the last book, it got to a point where it was going along, and I'm like, you gotta go. I'm tired. I'm tired of your personality. I'm tired of writing you. You have to go. So he died. It was just enough. I had enough. I had another book. It's called Delacroix, and it was going on. I had this really cool love story that was going along, and I like to write about everyday life and the things that people go through. So it was this whole life of this guy that was going through. And by the time I got to, I'm going to say went through 3/4 of the book, the last quarter, I was like, this is enough. This has got to turn. I flipped that sucker right around, and that guy, he became a serial killer. And it was just like, where did this come from? Well, you get tired of the same old thing. You gotta keep your reader on their toes, and they think that the story's going to end one way, and you have to prove to them it's not. So.
Awesome. For everybody who's watching, I want you to hit that share button right now. We've got actually a pretty decent number. 5 people live, believe it or not, is pretty decent for stuff like this. So hit the share button right now. Just remind you, please do it. It helps me out and it helps Christopher out as well. Christopher, you're on Facebook. I'm assuming your books are available at breakingrulespublishing.com, correct?
Yeah, they are.
Awesome. When you are helping authors, what's the #1 piece of advice that you could give them for getting their stuff out there after they are actually published?
Everyone thinks that Facebook is the place to go, and they don't necessarily understand social media. And so Facebook is a place for you to chat and tell your friends what you've had for dinner, and this is what the sunrise looked like this morning. That's what that's about. And you're going to educate them to say, this is my book, and maybe you'll sell something out of that. If you go into Instagram, people are only there for the pictures. They don't want to hear what you got to say. They're only there for the pictures. So if you're going to put your book out there and your cover, then that's a cool thing. If you're going to tag a whole bunch of things on it so that people can actually see it that are beyond your globe, that's cool. Twitter is enormous. And you can get so much more benefit out of Twitter. And this is going to be a really thing that maybe you won't even think about. What do you think is the best social media platform for you to sell a book?
I don't, Spotify or Amazon.
LinkedIn. Well, Amazon. It's LinkedIn. Do you know why? LinkedIn. Do you know why?
Because
all the people there, they're not looking to socialize with you. They're not looking to find out what you had for dinner. They're there to find something. And the people who are usually on LinkedIn are professionals. Therefore, they have a job and they have money. So when you go on there and say, this is my new book, or this is what I've been doing, and this is the process that I go, they're going to be more interested to contact you and say, I think I love what you're doing, or how can I find your book, than someone that you're talking to on Facebook showing them what you've had for dinner.
And that's for fiction and nonfiction and everything like that, or everything?
Everything. You were to go onto LinkedIn, you're going to be so surprised on how many people are going to contact you and say, this is awesome. I love what you're doing. And this is exactly what I've been looking for. I needed a summer read. And thank you for that. I needed a gift for my kids, and they're looking for a child's book. I needed a gift for my kids. Here you are. This is great. And they have the money to buy it. The people who are on all these other social medias, they have a phone in their hand and they're posting 15, 16 times a day, don't necessarily have the expendable income that they can go ahead and buy a book for $15, $20 and plus shipping, if you're not getting it off of Amazon, to do that. So you have to go where the money is. The people who are on LinkedIn have jobs. You got to go where the money is.
Well, theoretically, they have jobs, right? Right now, we don't know, but
the unemployment rate. Who knows who's got a job now?
Yeah, that's awesome. I do want to thank you for coming on. We've promoted everything you got, right? Is there anything else you have left to promote with what you're doing?
Everything is good. You know, we've got we have 3 magazines that we put out each month. One of them is a horror magazine. The other one is, and it's called Horror. Then there's one called The Scribe, and that's a multi-genre magazine. And then there's another, it's called Triangle Writers, and that's just for LGBT writers. And then there's we put an anthology out every single month a horror anthology, and they go every other. So a horror anthology every other month, and then a specifically themed anthology that comes out in between all those. So all kinds of stuff going on. If you're a short story writer and you need to find a place for it, this is the place to go.
And you have a contest, I think I saw, for wedding stuff. Is that correct? I was on the website earlier. What is the wedding?
With the wedding anthology, yeah. We just put that out. The next one is going to be for it's going to be called First Degree, and it's going to be for anything for the Legal Eagles. So that if you've got a law story or a mystery, or you're a Nancy Drew fan and you want to do some Agatha Christie, this is the book for you.
Fantastic. I do want to thank you for coming on to my little show.
I had one question for you, and this is kind of off the wall. You ready?
Yeah.
I was in an interview one time, and the guy asked me. He said, "If this room were full of ping pong balls, how many would there be in it?"
Mine?
Yeah. How many ping pong balls would be in the room you're in?
78,000.
So my answer to him was, "What color are the ping pong balls?" And he's like, "What?" I said, "Well, if they're painted, they're gonna be thicker than what a regular ping pong ball is, so that'll diminish the size. So I need to know if they're painted or they're not." And he's like, "Okay, you got the job." He was looking for a creative soul, and that was what he needed. So that was cool.
That makes sense. I just did the math. Square footage in my head.
75,000 ping pong balls in my room right now. All right, you have a great day, okay?
We're not quite done yet. I got one last question. One last question I ask every guest. And you have to answer it honestly. The question I ask is because we're all locked up, all this bull crap that's going on right now. What's one thing you've done for yourself? Not for anybody else, but one thing you've done for yourself. And the important part is today, not yesterday, not what you're planning on. What have you done already?
This is sad. I actually live on the beach in Florida, in Pompano Beach, and I live on the water. And I have a 2,600 square foot patio with a huge pool that looks out over the beach and the ocean. And every day I walk out to the ocean and play with it, and then come back again. Today I walked a little bit further, but there's also a big, huge leatherback turtle nest that's right out in front of our place. So I kind of go out and parole that, and I'm waiting for them to hatch so that I can see it. So that's my thing I do every day.
Why is that sad?
Why is it sad?
Yeah, you said this is sad.
Oh, it's sad because there's so many people who are locked up in their house. I feel bad sometimes because there's so many people who are locked up in their house and they can't go anywhere, or they're afraid to go out. I am outside every single day. My social distancing is a whole lot different than a lot of other people's. I mean, I can go out into the water, into the beach, and I can walk around my patio, and I'm perfectly fine. I'm not stuck in my one-bedroom apartment and can't. You know what I mean? That's what's sad about it, is that I feel bad that a lot of other people don't have the luxury that I have to do this. So.
That's a good explanation.
Thank you for taking on all of my writers and my authors. It's awesome that you're doing this. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Anything I can do to help. I'm going to end the broadcast and keep you on for 2 more minutes afterwards. Is that okay?
Great. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we end it in this way. All 8 people watching, share it right now. Right now.
Cool, 8 people. Yes.
We don't normally do that. I don't ask for shares, but and one left right away. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we end it in one way. I'm going to ask you to wave bye, Christopher. Say bye.